Today, we're reviewing an emotional sci-fi BL manhwa set in a world where humanity survives thanks to powerful sentinels and their guides. Adam, an ordinary guide, falls in love at first sight with Eve, the strongest and most dangerous sentinel ever created. As they grow closer, hidden memories, deadly conspiracies, and impossible choices threaten to tear them apart. Let's jump into the story. Who would have thought that the sentinel with the highest danger classification would possess such breathtaking beauty? From the moment Adam saw him, it was love at first sight. After setting up the camera, the man calmly took his seat and began recording. My name is Adam William. I currently live in the Delta District. I am a Beta-class guide and previously served as an escort for the Sentinel Mobile Deployment Unit. I have since retired. This recording is meant to preserve the story between myself and EV, codenamed Michael N. 6.00, the very first Sentinel. His thoughts drifted back to the mission where everything began. An S-class gate had suddenly appeared in the Epsilon Zone, and Adam was ordered to deploy a Sentinel to deal with it. However, the accompanying soldiers hesitated. When Adam asked why, they admitted they were afraid. The Sentinel assigned to the mission, codename Michael, had a Destruction Class danger rating. Every Sentinel carried a danger classification that measured the amount of destruction they could cause if they ever lost control. Destruction was the highest danger level imaginable. If a Sentinel at that level went berserk, humanity itself could be wiped out. The story began 20 years earlier. That was when humanity first came face to face with extinction. On what seemed like an ordinary morning, people suddenly looked up to see an enormous black vortex forming in the sky. It became known as the first gate ever recorded. When it opened, the beings that emerged didn't resemble monsters. Instead, they looked like the angels described in ancient legends. Bathed in radiant light with sacred appearances, many believed they had come to save humanity. But the truth was the exact opposite. They brought only destruction. No matter how desperately humanity fought, they stood no chance. Half of the world's population was wiped out, just as mankind surrendered to despair and prepared for extinction. A miracle occurred. Golden light burst through the clouds. A true angel descended. The heavenly being annihilated every invader. But even that angel suffered devastating injuries during the battle and eventually fell to earth, bleeding heavily. Humans reached the place where the angel had fallen and successfully recovered fragments from its body. Fearing that another gate would someday appear, they began countless years of research. Eventually, they succeeded in creating a new kind of human, the Sentinels. Scientists also discovered a way to detect the energy waves emitted before a gate fully opened. By sending Sentinels into the gate first, humanity could eliminate the threat before disaster struck. However, the Sentinels possessed one fatal flaw. Whenever they overused their abilities, they risked losing control. Rampaging Sentinels often caused devastation even greater than the enemies they fought. This led humanity to begin another research project. Eventually, they discovered mutated humans, individuals whose bodies had changed after coming into contact with the angel's blood. These new humans became known as guides. Guides emitted unique pheromones capable of calming unstable sentinels and preventing them from going berserk. From then on, humanity relied on both sentinels and guides to defend the world. Every sentinel and every guide was assigned a rank based on their abilities. The greater the difference in rank between them, the less effective a guide's stabilization abilities became. Back in the present, Adam approached a sealed containment pod. Inside was the sentinel the soldiers had been talking about. Michael, the one classified as destruction level. Seeing the warning display marked SSS risk level, Adam couldn't help breaking into a cold sweat. It was the first time he had ever encountered a sentinel of such terrifying rank. Since none of the soldiers dared approach, Adam waved them away. "I'll handle this myself. If we wait until the gate opens completely, it'll be too late." A gate of this scale can only be cleared by an S-class Sentinel or higher. He pressed the release switch. The containment chamber slowly opened. "Hello, Sentinel Michael." "It's time for deployment." Michael stood up. Adam carefully removed the restraints from his body while explaining the mission. "This is your current location. Once the operation is complete, send the emergency recall signal and we'll regroup." As he spoke, Adam noticed that Michael was still wearing a blindfold. He stepped closer and gently removed it. The moment the blindfold slipped away, Adam froze. The face before him was so unbelievably beautiful that he questioned whether such beauty could truly exist on a human being. He stared for what felt like forever. Finally realizing himself, Adam quickly turned away, his face burning red. Michael quietly asked, "What is your name?" Snapping back to reality, Adam hurriedly introduced himself. "Adam William." Michael softly repeated the name to himself. "Adam." Adam then noticed another pair of restraints still attached to Michael's wrists. "That's strange. I thought I already unlocked these." Just then, the deployment hatch opened. Powerful winds rushed into the aircraft. Adam hurried forward, trying to remove the remaining handcuffs. Before he could reach him, Michael called out, "Adam, we'll meet again." The next instant, he leaped into the sky. Before Adam could even react, Michael was already descending toward the gate. After the aircraft landed, one of the soldiers asked in confusion, "Why did you remove Michael's blindfold?" Adam looked puzzled. "I simply followed standard procedure." The soldier shook his head. "In every unit I've served with, no one bothers removing a sentinel's restraints unless absolutely necessary," Adam answered firmly. "It's for the sentinel's own safety." The soldier laughed. "They're sentinels. They won't die that easily. They're practically built for fighting." Adam's expression immediately hardened. "Corporal Kyle, I'll be reporting this to our superiors. When we return, you'll undergo additional training. If you intend to stay in this unit, you need to change that mindset." The soldier fell silent, feeling unfairly scolded. Adam understood why most soldiers thought that way. To them, sentinels were dangerous weapons, disposable tools of war. But after meeting Michael, Adam couldn't see him that way. Michael was a person, a human being, someone who willingly threw himself into hell for the sake of humanity. At that moment, violent distortions appeared around the gate. Brilliant golden light erupted from within. Michael emerged, his wings spread wide as he flew out of the collapsing gate. Adam stared in disbelief. That was incredibly fast. Michael landed before him and politely greeted him. Looking at him standing there beneath the golden light, Adam couldn't help thinking, if Michael wasn't human, then perhaps he was a god. After the gate crisis ended, the government continued debating what should be done with the Sentinels. The public was equally curious about their fate. Rumors spread that they might all be eliminated. Sometime later, Adam, still limping from a leg injury, met a friend at a restaurant. His friend waved him over. After ordering their food, the friend asked, "How's your leg?" "I'm fine. I can walk without any problems." His friend smiled. "So, don't you resent what happened?" Michael's face immediately appeared in Adam's mind. Instead of answering, Adam simply said, "Get to the point." His friend understood what he meant. "You're asking about the Sentinels. The government has already made its decision. They acknowledged that Sentinels are potentially dangerous. But they also risk their lives to protect humanity. So they've decided to recruit guides who will help train them and teach them how to adapt to living in ordinary human society." When Adam learned that Michael was about to be discarded as a failed experiment, he rushed toward the laboratory to stop it. Watching the government officials arguing on the large conference screen, Adam saw that everyone had a different opinion about the Sentinels' fate. The debate became so heated that some of them nearly came to blows. At that moment, Adam couldn't help questioning the world they lived in. People had become intoxicated by the hard-earned peace they enjoyed. If someone were to ignite the fuse beneath that fragile tranquility, the explosion would be far greater than anyone imagined. Adam realized that Ryan had probably asked to see him because he wanted to give Michael another chance. As Adam closed his refrigerator, an old photograph slipped onto the floor. It was a picture of the cat he used to keep. The cat had silky, cream-colored fur and bright, sapphire blue eyes. The first time Adam saw Michael, those same beautiful eyes had immediately reminded him of his beloved pet. His thoughts returned to the day he had guided Michael for the first time. He had completely lost track of time. It felt as though he was reaching his limit. After all, he was only a beta-class guide, trying to stabilize Michael, a Triple S Sentinel. With tears welling in his eyes, Adam looked at Michael. Then he noticed something unusual. Whenever Michael was in a particularly good mood, he had a strange habit. He would gently lick Adam's eyelids. That was exactly what Michael was doing now. Then, to Adam's surprise, Michael even let out a soft meow. Only then did Adam realize the truth. Michael possessed the ability to read minds, compared to the embarrassment of having his thoughts exposed. The overwhelming guilt he felt was far greater. He was terrified that Michael had already seen through every selfish and hypocritical thought hidden in his heart. Ryan had probably approached him because of that. He wanted Adam to rely on sympathy and compassion while helping Sentinels adapt to society. But Adam felt it was unfair. Somewhere deep inside, he had already begun seeing Michael as a person, someone even more remarkable than himself. Meanwhile, inside the research facility, Ryan stood in front of Michael's containment chamber. Looking at the sleeping Sentinel inside, he quietly said, "I met Adam today. The Adam William whose memories you erased." Not long afterward, the government officially began recruiting guides to help Sentinels integrate into normal society. As a retired soldier, Adam never imagined the program would have anything to do with him. Reading the newspaper, he discovered that many Sentinels had already been successfully paired with guides and had begun learning how to live among ordinary people. But there was still no news about Michael. "He probably just hasn't been announced yet," Adam reassured himself. "Everything should be fine." Just then, someone called out to him. It was his former teammate, Kira. Kira greeted him enthusiastically with a handshake. Standing behind him was the Sentinel Azrael. Kira smiled proudly. "He goes by Pow now." Adam looked completely confused. Kira laughed. "Every Sentinel who successfully pairs with a guide gets a new name. I think it's adorable." Adam then asked Azrael, "Is the training difficult?" Azrael calmly shook his head. "Not at all. Kira helps me a lot." When Adam mentioned that Gabriel had also successfully found a guide, Kira smiled. "Then, Michael is the only one left, isn't he?" Adam nodded. "He should be joining soon." Before he could finish speaking, Azrael quietly interrupted. "My father has already been sentenced to disposal." Kira blinked in confusion. "Your father?" Azrael nodded. "Michael. He isn't like us. He was the failed prototype. He was the very first completed Sentinel. His genetic structure was unstable. Our genes were developed by modifying the genetic material taken from him. That's why we all call him Father. I'm a third-generation Sentinel. Everyone from the second generation onward is considered his child. As for the first generation, they were all destroyed. They were too dangerous. Father was unstable. He survived only because humanity still needed his genetic material. Now that they already have what they need, they no longer need his original body. If Father ever loses control, even we wouldn't be able to stop him. The entire human race would perish." Kira looked devastated. "That's so cruel." Azrael simply asked, "Cruel? We exist for humanity. If humanity no longer needs us, we are discarded. That is our purpose." Kira couldn't believe what he had just heard. Without hesitation, he tightly embraced Azrael. "I'll protect you." It was the first time anyone had ever said those words to him. At that moment, Adam thought of Michael. His heart felt as though it had completely collapsed. The Sentinels willingly threw themselves into the gates for humanity. Yet no one was willing to protect them. Not even him. Remembering every moment he had spent with Michael, Adam could no longer sit still. Even if everyone else abandons him, I absolutely can't. At the laboratory, Ryan received a phone call. Seeing Adam's name on the screen, he wasn't surprised in the slightest. Adam spoke immediately. Prepare the contract. I'll take responsibility for Michael. By the time Adam arrived at the research facility, Ryan was already waiting at the entrance. Ryan greeted him casually. Adam frowned. After entering the building, he asked, "Why didn't you tell me?" Ryan pretended not to understand. Adam had no patience for the act. "I'm talking about Michael." Ryan finally dropped the pretense. "If I'd known you'd rush over this quickly, I probably would have appealed to your sympathy sooner. There's something you need to know. The Michael you knew no longer exists." The laboratory doors slowly opened. Adam stared blankly ahead. Michael lay asleep inside a transparent containment chamber. Ryan quietly explained, "Every memory he had of you has been erased from his mind. He possesses the ability to create and alter memories. We couldn't stop him. We still don't know what went wrong. He became unstable. So we were forced to sedate him and seal him away. The higher-ups believe a sentinel who can no longer be controlled has no value. But I disagree. He still has value." "If you're willing to help," Adam asked softly. "So, he can't wake up?" Ryan nodded. "Not for now. We administered the sedative not long ago. He shouldn't regain consciousness for another 2 days." Looking through the glass at the sleeping Michael, Adam still believed in him. He believed that the man who had always been stronger, kinder, and better than himself would somehow save himself again. Perhaps that belief was only an excuse, a way to hide Adam's own shame. Ryan then said, "If Michael is going to live in society, he'll need a real name. Have you decided what to call him?" Adam gently placed his hand against the surface of the chamber. Leaning closer, he softly whispered the name he had chosen. The instant Michael heard it, his body suddenly reacted. His closed eyes slowly opened. He reached out toward Adam through the glass. At that moment, Adam felt as though heaven had granted him a second chance. Ryan stared in disbelief. "That's impossible. He shouldn't be able to wake up yet." Adam smiled gently and greeted the man inside the chamber. "From today onward, I'll be responsible for your social adaptation training." At that exact same moment, miles away, Azrael suddenly stopped walking. He sensed something. Father has opened his eyes. Even though Adam spent the entire time waiting at home trying to mentally prepare himself, the moment Michael actually arrived, he was still so nervous that he couldn't bring himself to look directly at his beautiful face. Earlier, Adam had agreed to Ryan's proposal and officially became Michael's assigned guide. The news spread quickly. On the way to Adam's house, Ryan turned to Michael and said, "We'll be there soon." "How are you feeling?" Michael quietly replied, "I'm not sure. I wonder what kind of person he is. Will he be afraid of me?" Ryan sighed. "I don't know either." Meanwhile, Adam sat nervously on the sofa, staring at the clock. Did I really make the right decision? There was no answer. Maybe I should think about it a little more. Just then, the doorbell rang. Adam immediately jumped to his feet. "They're here already?" Standing outside, Michael listened quietly to the sounds coming from inside the house. When Adam opened the door, he politely greeted him. Michael stood there holding a bouquet of flowers. A gentle smile appeared on his breathtakingly beautiful face. Adam was so stunned that he couldn't even look him in the eyes. "Welcome. You must have had a tiring trip." When no one responded, Adam looked up in confusion. The next moment, Michael silently held out the bouquet toward him. Adam was caught completely off guard. He hurriedly accepted the flowers. "Thank you. They're beautiful." Then he extended his hand with a smile. "It's a pleasure to meet you. My name is Adam William. Please take good care of me." Only then did Michael realize Adam wanted to shake hands. He slowly reached out and took Adam's hand. He seemed fascinated by Adam's words. Instead of letting go after the handshake, however, Michael continued holding his hand without moving. Adam tilted his head in confusion. Only after Adam gently reminded him did Michael finally release his grip. Looking at the familiar face before him, Adam couldn't help wondering, "Does he really not remember me at all?" Adam then poured him a cup of tea, hoping they could sit down and get to know each other. Michael curiously picked up the teacup. He brought it to his nose and sniffed it. Then, without hesitation, he took a large sip. Adam's expression changed instantly. He hurried over. "The tea is still hot." Michael immediately stuck out his tongue like a startled kitten after burning himself. The sight made Adam's heart ache. Michael innocently explained, "This is the first time I've ever had water that smells like this." Only then did Adam realize just how many restrictions the Sentinels had lived under. Michael didn't even know what an ordinary cup of tea was. Still worried that he had burned himself, Adam gently said, "Let me see your tongue." Michael obediently opened his mouth and stuck out his tongue without hesitation. "It hurts a little, but if you guide me, I'll be fine." Adam quietly stared at him for a long moment. Then he slowly leaned closer and gently kissed him. With an adorable tilt of his head, Eve silently asked for another kiss. Adam found himself completely unable to resist. Facing the camera, Adam recalled their first meeting. "Meeting Eve for the first time became another test for me. Back then, I let my own selfish feelings drive me to run away from him. When we met again, he no longer remembered who I was. But I had begun to desire him once more." Worried that Eve had burned his tongue on the hot tea, Adam decided to use a guide stabilization to soothe him. Neither of them closed their eyes during the kiss. When it ended, Eve looked at him curiously. "What was that?" Adam froze, suddenly at a loss for words. Seeing his reaction, Eve asked with concern, "Are you all right?" Adam covered his mouth in disbelief. He still hadn't recovered from what had just happened. "Did I let my selfish feelings take over again, just like back then?" Looking into Eve's innocent eyes, Adam hurriedly apologized. "I'm sorry. That was an accident." Eve stepped a little closer. "Are you afraid of me?" Adam quickly shook his head. "No, it's not like that." Although Eve didn't fully understand what kissing meant, he knew one thing for certain. It made him feel happy. Tilting his head like a curious kitten, he softly asked, "Can we do it one more time?" Deep down, Adam knew he should refuse. He should apologize properly and end the moment there. Yet, for some reason, not a single word would come out of his mouth. Eve slowly leaned closer, silently waiting for an answer. When Adam remained speechless, Eve took his silence as permission. Whenever he looked at Eve like this, Adam always felt as though his heart had become unbearably fragile. He had absolutely no resistance against him. Even after all this time, nothing had changed. He still hadn't made any progress. Carried away by the moment, Adam accidentally bit Eve's lip. Instead of complaining, Eve wore an expression of pure enjoyment. Hearing noises coming from outside, Eve frowned slightly. "It's noisy." Then he returned his full attention to Adam. As they became immersed in the moment once again, Adam blamed his own lack of self-control. "We should stop here," but Eve clearly didn't agree. As he gently pushed Adam down onto the sofa, he instinctively placed one hand behind Adam's head to keep him from getting hurt. Only then did Adam realize. Eve possessed an incredible natural talent when it came to kissing. The first kiss had been hesitant and inexperienced. By the second, he already seemed completely at ease. Adam could only surrender, allowing Eve to guide his breathing entirely. In that moment, he was happier than he had ever been, happy enough to lose all sense of reason. The gentle kisses continued from a bright sunlit afternoon until the warm glow of sunset filled the room. Eve looked completely satisfied. "I'm really happy." Only then did Adam slowly sit up. His face burning red, he covered it with one hand, too embarrassed to meet Eve's gaze. Eve looked puzzled. He gently pulled Adam's hand away and asked with concern, "Does it hurt?" "It doesn't hurt for me." He reached out and softly brushed his fingers across Adam's lips. Then, with complete sincerity, he smiled and said, "Out of all the humans I've ever met, you're the most beautiful." Eve's charm truly was impossible to resist. With nothing more than a sweet smile, he managed to captivate every man and woman around him. Back at the laboratory, Ryan glanced at the calendar. Today's his scheduled examination. "I can't believe a whole week has already passed. I'd better get everything ready." When Adam arrived wearing a face mask, Ryan looked at him curiously. "Did you catch a cold?" Adam shook his head awkwardly. "No. My lips are just a little swollen." He then explained everything that had happened over the past week. After listening, Ryan immediately wore the expression of someone enjoying juicy gossip. "So your very first week together was already that intense? You kissed so much that your lips actually swelled?" Adam sighed helplessly. "No matter how much I tried to stop him, he just wouldn't listen." Ryan laughed. "Then try getting angry." Adam instantly imagined Eve's face, looking at someone that beautiful. How could he possibly stay angry? Ryan could only shrug. "I guess there's nothing I can do about that." He then became serious again. "If he's really that stubborn, there shouldn't be any major problems managing him, right?" Adam nodded. "So far, yes." Ryan looked through the observation window at Eve inside the examination room. For some reason, something about him felt different. Soon, the test results appeared. Every one of Eve's readings was higher than those of the other Sentinels. Fortunately, none of them had reached the level where he was at immediate risk of going berserk. Ryan reassured Adam. "Nothing too serious. But because the difference between your guide rank and his Sentinel rank is so large, simple guidance isn't enough. You'll need direct mucosal contact to barely maintain his stability. For the remaining imbalance, he'll need regular medication. And if that still isn't enough, we may have to ask another guide to help." Adam understood exactly what Ryan meant. The other guide he was referring to would have to be an Alpha class guide or above. Ryan continued, "Other than you, I've already turned everyone else down. So I hope you'll make the most of this opportunity." After the examination ended, Eve waited quietly outside for Adam. Adam walked over. "Have you been waiting long?" "Just a little while." Almost immediately, Adam sensed that something felt different about Eve today. Then Eve quietly said, Can you hug me?" Adam blinked. "Right now?" Seeing the slightly disappointed expression on Eve's face, Adam's resolve instantly crumbled. Unable to refuse, he stepped forward and wrapped Eve in a gentle embrace. Eve immediately hugged him back just as tightly. The feeling only convinced Adam even more. Something really was different about him today. "I'll ask him about it after we get home," he thought. After they separated, Adam smiled. "Are you hungry?" "I think I am." "How about we go out for something to eat today?" Eve tilted his head. "Dry food?" Adam laughed softly. "Yes. But now that you've received permission, you can also start trying some ordinary food." With that, Adam took him to his favorite cafe. The moment they walked inside, everyone turned to look. The young women behind the counter couldn't hide their amazement. I've never seen such a handsome man before." The customers nearby whispered among themselves. Adam had already expected this reaction. Eve's appearance was simply impossible to ignore. Just then, Eve leaned toward him, opened his mouth slightly, and looked at him expectantly. It was obvious he wanted Adam to feed him. Adam could only smile helplessly. Picking up a sandwich, he carefully held it out. Eve obediently took a bite. "Do you like it?" Eve nodded with a bright, satisfied smile. Not only did Adam find himself completely captivated by that smile, everyone else in the cafe did too. The customers watching the two of them couldn't stop blushing at how sweet the scene was. Looking around at all the attention they had attracted, Adam smiled awkwardly. If every meal causes this much of a commotion, it might be better if we just order food to the house from now on. After Adam refused to kiss him, Eve quietly returned to his room and sulked by himself. That evening, while brushing his teeth, Adam couldn't stop thinking about what Ryan had said regarding Eve's test results. It really was because the gap between their ranks was simply too great. A guide's pheromones could calm a sentinel who was on the verge of losing control. When a guide became emotionally excited, the concentration of those pheromones increased significantly. For that reason, the most effective time for a sentinel to absorb them was during moments of close physical contact. However, in actual combat, relying on that method was obviously inefficient. Later generations of sentinels were genetically modified so that only minimal contact was needed to achieve the same effect. But Eve belonged to the older generation, created before those improvements existed. Looking into Eve's room, Adam saw that he appeared to have fallen asleep. Smiling to himself, Adam thought, "We're not using any abilities tonight anyway. It should be fine." So he prepared to go to bed. Lying on the old sofa, he heard it creaking loudly. "I've been using this sofa for too long," he thought. "I should replace it soon. Maybe I should buy a double bed too." Late that night, a faint sound woke him. A figure quietly approached him in the darkness. It was Eve. Half asleep, Adam sensed someone nearby and slowly opened his eyes. The moment he did, their gazes met. Adam immediately sat up. "What is it?" Eve looked at him and honestly answered, "I want a kiss." Adam was caught completely off guard. So suddenly? He then remembered Ryan's advice. You shouldn't always give him everything he wants. Setting boundaries will help with his social adaptation. Indulging him all the time isn't good for him. Thinking of those words, Adam gently refused. With an unusually serious expression, he said, "I don't want a kiss right now." "Go back to bed." Eve obediently stood up at once. "Okay. I'll go sleep." Although he listened without arguing, the disappointment on his face was impossible to hide. Seeing that lonely expression made Adam feel guilty almost immediately. A little later, he heard movement coming from Eve's room. Curious, Adam went to take a look. There he found Eve sitting on the bed with his knees drawn up, looking exactly like a sulking child. He seemed terribly unhappy. Adam couldn't help smiling helplessly. Walking over, he softly called his name. Eve slowly looked up. Adam sat down beside him. "Are you angry?" Eve quietly replied, "I don't know." Adam realized that Eve still wasn't familiar with understanding or expressing his own emotions. Watching him nervously fidget with his feet, Adam gently said, "Look at me." The moment Eve turned his head, Adam leaned forward and gave him a gentle kiss. Smiling, Adam suggested, "How about we make a rule? If you behave well and listen to me, then you'll get a kiss." Eve's eyes immediately lit up. He happily agreed without hesitation. Then Adam asked, "Can you move over a little?" Eve froze in surprise. Was Adam asking to sleep beside him? He could hardly believe it. His face instantly brightened. "So, we'll sleep together every day?" Adam laughed. "Should we add that to the rules too?" Eve nodded enthusiastically. "Yes. I'll be good. I'll listen to everything you say." It seemed that true beauty transcended gender. The moment a little girl saw Eve's breathtaking appearance, she innocently called him a princess right in front of everyone. The next morning, warm sunlight streamed through the windows. Adam slowly opened his eyes. To his surprise, Eve had fallen asleep lying on top of him. Carefully trying not to wake him, Adam gently shifted his body. As soon as he touched Eve, however, he noticed that his body temperature seemed lower than usual. Wanting to confirm his suspicion, Adam softly woke him. Eve. After Eve opened his eyes, Adam said, "Can you show me the back of your neck?" Although he had no idea why Adam was asking, Eve obediently did as he was told. He turned around and lifted his hair. Looking at the indicator on the back of Eve's neck, Adam noticed that its color had become noticeably redder. Has his synchronization level dropped already? Eve looked back at him with a puzzled expression. Adam? Only then did Adam realize he had been staring. Smiling gently, he said, "It looks like you've been doing a good job listening to me." Being praised instantly made Eve smile with obvious delight. Without hesitation, he leaned forward, silently asking for a kiss. Adam laughed awkwardly. "Let's brush our teeth first." But before he could finish speaking, Eve had already moved closer. In the end, Adam once again gave in to his request. After getting ready, the two of them headed outside together. Everything they saw around them, the peaceful streets, the ordinary lives people enjoyed, had only been made possible because of sentinels like Eve. As they walked, Eve looked around curiously. Everything seemed new and fascinating to him. Soon, Eve noticed a young couple walking hand in hand. He looked down at his own hand for a moment, then quietly reached over and took Adam's hand. Adam blinked in surprise. Even now, there were still people who looked at two men holding hands with strange expressions. But seeing Eve smile so happily, none of that seemed to matter anymore. Besides, physical contact also helped stabilize Eve's condition. A church bell suddenly rang. Only then did Adam realize how late it had become. We should stop by the bank before buying groceries. On the way there, they chatted about what they wanted to eat for dinner. After entering the bank, a little girl sitting nearby couldn't stop staring at Eve. Eve noticed her and smiled warmly. The little girl suddenly pointed at him and shouted, "Princess!" The entire bank fell silent. Everyone turned to look. Adam quickly smiled awkwardly. "Actually, he's a man." The little girl immediately protested. "But pretty people are princesses." Eve crouched down until he was at the little girl's eye level. "Do you think I'm pretty?" She nodded enthusiastically. "Very pretty." Eve smiled even more brightly. "I think you're very pretty too." The unexpected compliment instantly made the little girl's cheeks turn bright red. Just then, her mother hurried over. "I'm so sorry." Adam waved it off with a smile. "It's all right." The little girl tugged on her mother's sleeve. "Mom, am I pretty too?" Watching the exchange, Eve immediately copied her. He turned to Adam with hopeful eyes. "Am I pretty?" Adam smiled without hesitation. "Of course. You're very beautiful." At that exact moment, the front doors of the bank burst open. A group of armed men dressed in black rushed inside. One of them fired a shot into the air and shouted, "Nobody move!" Even in the middle of a life-threatening crisis, the two of them were still smiling at each other. The robbers finally lost their patience and opened fire. A group of armed men suddenly stormed into the bank. One of them fired a warning shot into the air. "Nobody move!" Adam's eyes widened in shock. A security guard immediately reached for his radio to call for backup while trying to draw his pistol. Before he could react, one of the robbers shot him. Adam frowned. Did they break through the security outside? "If only my leg hadn't been injured," the robbers shouted again. "Hands up, everyone on your knees." Eve calmly tilted his head and looked at them, completely unfazed. Then he noticed the frightened mother and daughter beside him, both trembling in fear. Adam gently nudged Eve with his shoulder and whispered, "For now, do what they say. We'll wait for the right opportunity." Meanwhile, several robbers were forcing the bank employees to empty the vault. Eve quietly asked, "Are those people harming humans? Are they like the messengers?" "Do you want me to kill them?" Hearing those innocent words gave Adam an indescribable sense of dizziness. Just then, one of the robbers pointed his gun directly at them. "Didn't you hear me? I said raise your hands and kneel." Adam immediately complied. Although Eve didn't understand why they had to obey, he copied Adam anyway. Then, with a bright smile, he innocently asked, "Like this?" The robber's face twisted with rage. "You're still smiling at a time like this? Do you think I'm joking?" Without another word, he pulled the trigger. Bang! Even then, Eve didn't flinch. After the gunshot echoed through the bank, Adam slowly opened his eyes. The sight before him left him speechless. The bullet had pierced straight through Eve's hand. A trace of anger finally appeared on Eve's face. He stood perfectly still in front of Adam, shielding him. The deformed bullet dropped harmlessly onto the floor. Seeing this, the robbers finally began to panic. Adam immediately realized what was happening. Eve was about to use his powers, but there were still civilians inside the bank. "Wait!" Adam hurriedly tried to stop him. Looking at the hole in his own hand, Eve spoke quietly. "So, this thing can kill humans." As he spoke, his injury began healing before everyone's eyes. The flesh regenerated rapidly until not even a scar remained. The robbers trembled in fear, but still aimed their weapons at him. Moments later, Eve's hand had completely recovered. One robber gritted his teeth and aimed directly at Eve's head. Before he could fire, a deafening rumble shook the entire building. The air itself seemed to distort. An enormous mass of concrete suddenly crashed down onto the gunman. He was killed instantly. The remaining robbers froze in terror. Their companions were dying one after another, and the man standing before them no longer looked human. Only then did they realize he was a sentinel. Gravity manipulation was Eve's innate ability. Within the area he designated, gravity itself obeyed his will. As cracks rapidly spread across the floor beneath them, Adam's expression changed. "Everyone! Get to a safe place! Stay away from Eve's field!" People rushed toward the exits as fast as they could. Within moments, the entire bank building began collapsing into itself. Later that day, television stations reported the incident. 4 armed bank robbery suspects have been confirmed dead. 1 bank employee sustained a gunshot wound. All other civilians and nearby residents suffered only minor injuries. The incident also involved a sentinel currently undergoing social adaptation training, along with his assigned guide. Back at the research facility, Ryan immediately ordered the medical team into action. Prepare stabilization treatment. Use the highest concentration available. Adam never imagined that drug-based stabilization would put Eve through such unbearable pain. Back at the research facility, Eve was quietly humming to himself in a cheerful mood. Adam walked over and gently said, "The situation isn't looking very good. You need to undergo drug stabilization immediately. We should get ready." Eve looked at him in confusion. "Can't you just guide me instead?" Adam lowered his eyes. "It's difficult. The difference between our ranks is too great. My guidance alone isn't enough anymore. I need you to cooperate with the treatment." Eve quietly clenched his hands. Then he looked at Adam and asked, "When it's over, will you kiss me?" Adam smiled softly. "As much as you want." Only then did Eve nod in agreement. However, the moment he realized he was about to receive the treatment, his entire body began trembling uncontrollably. Even so, because he had promised Adam, he forced himself to go. Inside the laboratory, everything had already been prepared. Eve lay restrained on the treatment platform. Adam stood outside the observation window, silently watching. It was his first time witnessing a sentinel undergo drug stabilization. He couldn't understand why Eve had to be restrained so tightly. The medication began flowing into Eve's body. Almost immediately, Adam heard him struggling inside. Eve's entire body convulsed violently in agony. Ryan and the researchers simply watched in silence. As the injection continued, Eve's cries grew increasingly painful. Even the tears running down his face gradually turned crimson. Adam's heart skipped a beat. Something wasn't right. He hurriedly turned to Ryan. "Something's wrong," Ryan calmly replied. "Relax. This is normal." Adam stared at him in disbelief. Ryan continued. "The medication artificially forces a sentinel's abilities back into a stable state. But at the same time, it temporarily melts their internal organs. A normal human body would dissolve into liquid almost instantly. Fortunately, sentinels possess extraordinary regenerative abilities. They regenerate faster than they're being destroyed. So they survive." Hearing those words, Adam suddenly remembered Eve's strange behavior after his previous treatment. Was it because of this? Unable to endure it any longer, Adam shouted, "Stop the procedure! I'll guide him myself," Ryan immediately objected. "The synchronization is almost at 100%. We can't stop now." Without another word, Adam drew his handgun. Bang! He fired directly at the laboratory's reinforced glass. Cracks instantly spread across its surface. As Adam raised the gun to fire again, the researchers rushed forward in panic, desperately trying to stop him. Inside the chamber, despite the unbearable pain, Eve looked through the cracked glass at Adam. He forced himself to smile. "I'm okay." In the end, the drug stabilization procedure was terminated early. The moment the chamber opened, Adam rushed inside and pulled Eve tightly into his arms. "Are you all right?" Eve gave a faint nod. Then he quietly asked, "Did I do well?" Adam gently stroked his hair. "You did. You did very well. But from now on, if you don't want something, I want you to tell me honestly. I know there are things we can't avoid, but I still want you to let me know how you really feel." Later that evening, after returning home, Adam quietly closed the front door and drew the curtains. He walked over to Eve and knelt beside him. "Now, I'm going to guide you. Just sit still and leave the rest to me." When Eve quietly said once again, "This is my first time receiving guidance," Adam finally became certain. Eve truly didn't remember him anymore. Since he had promised Eve that he would personally guide him, Adam wanted to do it properly. To maximize the effectiveness of the session, he prepared a special guidance enhancer. He knew the drug carried side effects, but even if he had to bear those consequences himself, he was willing to accept them. After all, he believed this was his fault. Inside the room, Eve sat patiently where Adam had asked him to wait. A few moments later, the door opened. Adam walked in and smiled apologetically. "Sorry for making you wait. I had to prepare a few things first." Eve returned the smile. "If you don't want to do this, you don't have to." Adam blinked in surprise. "It's okay." Eve looked at him seriously. "I don't want you to do something you dislike, just because of me." Adam couldn't understand. After enduring so much pain, how could Eve still smile so gently? He stepped closer and softly replied, "Thank you for thinking about me. But I don't dislike this." Then he asked in return, "What about you? If you don't want to continue, we can stop right now. The choice is yours." Eve bit his lower lip for a moment before quietly answering, "I don't dislike it." Hearing those words, Adam finally relaxed. Only then did he begin the guidance session. As the process continued, Eve spoke in a gentle voice. "This is my first time receiving guidance. I'm happy that you're the one guiding me." Adam's hand slowly tightened into a fist. He forced a smile. "I'm happy too." But deep inside, his heart ached. This was the second time Adam had heard Eve say those exact words. There was no longer any doubt. The sentinel once known as Michael truly had no memory of him anymore. Seeing Adam injured and clearly in pain, Eve couldn't hold back his tears. Sitting in front of the video camera, Adam reflected on the first time he fell in love with Eve. Back then, I was immature. I thought I understood everything about him. But when I realized that confidence was nothing more than my own illusion, my entire world fell apart. So, this time, I want to accept every part of who he is. Even if it means walking through fire for him, I won't hesitate. The next morning, sunlight slowly filled the room. Adam opened his eyes groggily. Eve was already awake, quietly watching him. The two of them had spent almost the entire night playing video games together, yet Eve showed no sign of being tired. Knowing Eve wanted to keep playing, Adam smiled and started another match with him. After a while, Eve looked at him and softly said, "I want a kiss." Adam couldn't help smiling. He leaned over and replied, "You can kiss me however you like." For breakfast, Adam made sandwiches. Eve picked one up and was just about to take a bite when a piece of lettuce slipped out and fell onto the floor. As Eve bent down to pick it up, Adam quickly stopped him. "Don't eat food that's fallen on the floor." Eve froze in surprise. "That's amazing. Do you have eyes on the back of your head?" Adam laughed at the innocent question. While peeling an apple a moment later, Adam suddenly felt dizzy. A wave of nausea hit him. His body swayed unsteadily. The apple slipped from his hand and rolled across the floor. Eve immediately stood up. "Adam, what's wrong? Are you feeling sick?" Adam forced a smile. "I'm fine. I'm probably just tired." Eve's gaze suddenly dropped toward the floor. "Your foot is bleeding." After cleaning the wound and putting on a bandage, Adam lay down to rest. Eve sat beside him and quietly asked, "Does it hurt?" "You're bleeding." Adam gently shook his head. "It's nothing serious. It doesn't really hurt. I'm just a little dizzy." Eve stared at him, his face filled with worry. After a long silence, Adam noticed that Eve wasn't saying anything anymore. He removed the towel from his forehead and sat up. "Eve?" When there was still no answer, Adam gently stroked his hair. "Look at me." Slowly, Eve raised his head. Adam's eyes widened. Tears were streaming down Eve's face. Eve had always struggled to understand emotions. The research facility had taught him how to smile, but no one had ever taught him how to express sadness, fear, or grief. Seeing the tears, Adam softly asked, "Are you crying?" Eve looked genuinely confused. "I don't know. My eyes just feel really hot." Adam gently took hold of his hands. "Don't rub them like that. You'll hurt your eyes." He carefully demonstrated. "When you cry, you wipe the tears gently." Eve listened quietly before whispering, "It feels like the nausea I had after the drug stabilization." He lowered his head. "Am I broken? Because I'm a failed prototype?" Eve always seemed to come up with new ways to catch Adam off guard. And as always, Adam simply couldn't resist him. The television continued reporting on the recent bank incident. Every news channel described Sentinels as dangerous beings who didn't belong in human society. "They're nothing more than weapons created for humanity." Unable to listen any longer, Adam reached over and switched off the TV. Ever since that incident, he and Eve had been forced to stay indoors to avoid the media. Adam picked up a bottle of guidance enhancer. Since they couldn't leave the house or visit the research institute, he wanted to avoid making Eve undergo drug stabilization again. Just then, the bathroom door opened. Fresh from his shower, Eve walked out looking completely relaxed. Adam smiled. "You were in there for quite a while." Eve nodded happily. "The water was so warm. I accidentally fell asleep." Then, like a child waiting to be praised, he added, "I washed myself the way you taught me." Hearing that, Adam gently pulled him closer and gave him a quick kiss. It was the kiss Eve had secretly been hoping for. His eyes immediately lit up. "Is that my reward?" Because Adam had taken the guidance enhancer earlier, he was beginning to feel slightly dizzy. Even so, he smiled and replied, "Yes, you did a good job." Eve's expression softened with happiness. He leaned closer, clearly wanting to return Adam's affection. Adam could feel himself growing flustered under Eve's unwavering attention. Eve, meanwhile, seemed delighted by Adam's embarrassed reactions. Seeing the situation becoming increasingly difficult to control, Adam laughed awkwardly. "Maybe we should move somewhere more comfortable." As Adam turned to walk away, Eve suddenly seemed to think of something. He reached out and grabbed Adam's arm. Caught completely by surprise, Adam lost his balance for a moment. Because Eve refused to let go, Adam stumbled backward and nearly fell. Then Eve quietly said something that left Adam frozen in place. For a long moment, Adam couldn't say a single word. Because Eve was no longer willing to cooperate with guidance sessions the way he had before, Adam made a difficult decision. He decided to find a higher-ranking guide to stabilize Eve instead. After a long, intimate build-up, Eve still made no move to go any further. By this point, Adam was completely exhausted. He couldn't understand why Eve was acting this way. Eve quietly explained, "I don't want you to feel uncomfortable." Looking at Adam, who was clearly worn out, Eve could hear his heartbeat more clearly than ever. He gently leaned closer, resting his ear against Adam as he listened. The steady rhythm made him feel strangely warm and comforted. From that day on, Adam noticed that something had changed. Eve seemed to be deliberately avoiding guiding sessions the way they used to be, yet his condition was still unstable. There was no way to know when his synchronization level might drop again. If things continued like this, he would eventually have to undergo drug stabilization once more. Just then, Eve stepped closer and softly asked, "Can I kiss you?" For Adam, there was no reason to refuse. He smiled and nodded. "Of course." As Eve's synchronization indicator continued to shift toward red, the public debate surrounding Sentinels only grew more intense. The media remained deeply divided. Some believed Sentinels were heroes who protected humanity. Others insisted they were too dangerous to live among ordinary people. To prevent the situation from spiraling out of control, Adam realized he had to make a decision. The next morning, while they were eating breakfast, Adam finally spoke. "A new guide is coming today. Their rank is higher than mine, so they should be able to stabilize you properly." Eve looked at him in confusion. "Why?" Adam lowered his gaze. "Because my rank is too low. The gap between us is simply too large. I can't fully guide you anymore. While you're receiving guidance, I'll step outside for a while. If there's anything you need before then, tell me now." Eve quietly shook his head. "No." After obediently finishing his breakfast, he looked at Adam with the same innocent expression as always. Then, like a child asking to be praised after doing something good, he softly requested, "Can I have my reward kiss now?" Adam was known for his calm and gentle personality, but the moment he saw Eve being struck by the new guide, he completely lost control. Ryan arrived at Adam's home with the newly assigned guide, Chess. On the way, Chess casually asked, "So, is Sentinel Michael handsome?" Ryan looked at him speechlessly. As Chess continued making frivolous comments, Ryan's expression darkened. "Watch your attitude. Just because you're a high-ranking guide doesn't give you the right to treat Sentinels like that." Chess merely shrugged. Yeah. When they arrived, Adam was already waiting outside. As soon as he saw Chess, he politely greeted him and extended his hand. "It's nice to meet you." Chess glanced at the offered handshake with obvious disdain. "We can skip the formalities. Just take me inside so we can get this over with." Ryan was visibly irritated by his attitude. Adam, however, chose not to argue. He quietly led Chess into the house. Before leaving, Ryan hesitated. "Are you sure this will be all right?" As they walked upstairs, Chess looked around the house and immediately began criticizing everything he saw. "You know, Why don't I just take Michael with me instead? He's exactly my type. Adam corrected him at once. His name isn't Michael. It's Eve. Chess rolled his eyes. He then noticed Adam's slight limp. Your leg still injured? Adam nodded calmly. It happened while I was serving in the military. It's much better now. I can still move around normally. After a brief pause, Adam added, Unlike guides, I'm just an ordinary person. The next moment, Adam pulled a handgun from inside his jacket. Chess jumped in surprise. What the hell? Are you pulling a gun on me just because I annoyed you? Adam shook his head. No. It's simply a precaution. To prevent unauthorized people from entering. As he unlocked the security door, he gestured for Chess to go inside. Once the door closed behind them, Adam remained standing outside. Guilt filled his thoughts. This was all because he wasn't strong enough. The research center had insisted on assigning another guide. Public opinion had made it impossible for Eve to leave the house. They couldn't even return to the facility. And Eve had refused Adam's guidance. Everything seemed to trace back to Adam's own shortcomings. Meanwhile, Chess casually wandered into the living room, looking around with little interest. What a boring place. Eve smiled politely. Please wear the indoor slippers. The moment Chess got a clear look at Eve's face, he let out a low whistle. He completely ignored Eve's reminder and walked straight toward him. Hello, Sentinel Michael. I'm your S-Class guide, Chess. Eve politely returned the greeting. He even reached out his hand. When we're finished, Adam and I are planning to have dinner. You're welcome to join us. Once again, Chess ignored the offered handshake. Instead, he suddenly grabbed Eve by the arm and forcibly pulled him close. Without warning, he kissed him. Eve's entire body stiffened. He immediately pushed Chess away and covered his own mouth. No, you can't do that. Chess's expression instantly turned ugly. You've got some nerve. He grabbed Eve by the collar and punched him squarely across the face. Outside the room, Adam heard the commotion. His heart skipped a beat. What happened? He immediately unlocked the door and rushed inside. The scene before him froze him in place. Chess was violently beating Eve. The moment Adam saw the bruises on Eve's face, something inside him snapped. Chess glanced at him impatiently. Close the door and get out. Before he could finish his sentence, Adam's fist slammed into his face. Then another, and another. Each punch landed harder than the last. At that moment, Adam wanted nothing more than to kill him. Then he heard a familiar voice. Adam! Eve's quiet call finally broke through his rage. Adam stopped. His clenched fists slowly loosened as he turned to look at Eve beside him. Because Adam assaulted another guide, the center quickly sent people to arrest him. Eve froze in shock as he watched Adam being taken away. He stepped forward to save him, but Ryan hurriedly stopped him. It's okay, Ryan reassured him. Adam will be fine. With no choice, Eve could only watch helplessly as Adam was led away. Ryan then brought Eve back to the research center. Alone in his room, Eve replayed everything that had happened. Nervously fidgeting with his fingers, he waited and waited. Adam still hadn't come back. He promised they'd return him soon. I want to go home. What if they never give him back? Meanwhile, Adam was being interrogated. The official informed him that, following orders from higher authorities, disciplinary action would be carried out immediately. There was also no guarantee he would be allowed to remain Michael's partner. Given the growing public backlash, their partnership might even be dissolved. Adam stared silently at the handcuffs around his wrists before quietly acknowledging the decision. Back at the center, Ryan visited Eve's room to check whether he had eaten. The meal was completely untouched. When Ryan walked closer, he noticed something was terribly wrong. Eve had bitten his fingers until they were bleeding. Ryan immediately tried to stop him. When is Adam coming back? Eve asked. Seeing tears in Eve's eyes, Ryan was stunned. Just wait a little longer. he said gently. But Eve shook his head. I can't wait anymore. If you don't give Adam back to me, I'll destroy everything. Ryan's expression instantly changed. Just as Eve slowly stood and reached out his hand, the door suddenly opened. Isaiah walked into the room. Ryan looked at him in surprise. Isaiah smiled calmly. I'll bring Adam back to you. Isaiah Sneck was a genius. Some would call him a mad scientist. He was the son of Professor Sneck, the scientist who created Michael, and the only person capable of inheriting his father's research. He had successfully completed the unstable Sentinel project. Watching the public outrage spiral out of control, Isaiah sighed. It was time for him to step in. One video, he said. That's all it will take. Meanwhile, Gabriel had already finished preparing everything. In the city, crowds marched through the streets demanding that all Sentinels be abolished. Among them, a little girl watched the protest with tears in her eyes. But the princess protected us. Her mother could only sigh helplessly. Then, a voice echoed across the square. Everyone looked up. At last, Adam was finally released. But by the time he returned, Eve had already cried himself into tears. In Adam's recorded diary, he explained that the truth humanity had been avoiding for years was finally revealed that day. A classified video was leaked to the public. For the first time, people witnessed what really happened inside the gates. The footage showed Sentinels entering the portals and fighting the messengers, scenes that had never been made public before. The reason was simple. Those brutal images would have filled humanity with guilt. For years, the Sentinels created by humans had been portrayed as emotionless weapons, machines that existed only to obey orders. The government and the center repeatedly claimed that Sentinels effortlessly eliminated the messengers, using those victories to strengthen public confidence. But the reality inside the gates was completely different. Many Sentinels were defeated. The gate suppression missions failed. Just like ordinary humans, the dying Sentinels cried as they begged to live. I don't want to die. I want to live. Yet they were mercilessly killed by the messengers. Those human-shaped beings, created solely to protect humanity, were thrown into hell and died there. Even so, the government insisted that Sentinels had no emotions, telling the public there was no reason to feel guilty. They even lied, claiming Sentinels possessed perfect regeneration and could never truly die. Humanity continued living in a false sense of peace. Then, one day, someone leaked the classified footage. Meanwhile, Adam was finally released. A soldier informed him that Michael, Eve, had been waiting for him the entire time. For now, stay with Sentinel Michael in his room. The soldier reached over to unlock Adam's restraints. Just then, Adam heard someone calling his name. He turned toward the voice. Eve stood there, already crying so hard that his face was soaked with tears. Adam froze in surprise. Eve hurried straight toward him, looking utterly heartbroken. The moment he saw the handcuffs on Adam's wrists, Eve reached out. Crack! The metal cuffs shattered instantly and fell to the floor. Without another word, Eve wrapped Adam in a tight embrace. Adam gently asked, "Why are you crying?" "It's okay. Don't cry." Still sobbing, Eve replied, "Because you weren't here. I was so scared. Isaiah told me, this feeling is called fear. So please, don't leave me alone again. Stay with me forever. Please, Adam." Adam held him even tighter. "I won't leave you." At that moment, Adam thought to himself, how could anyone call someone capable of expressing love like this? A machine. They returned to Eve's room. Once Eve had finally calmed down, Adam carefully looked him over, gently patting his back like comforting a child. His eyes were swollen from crying. The meal beside his bed hadn't even been touched. "You haven't been eating, have you?" Adam asked. "Are you hungry?" "I am," Eve admitted. "But the food here doesn't taste good. I want the peanut butter sandwiches you make." "Let's go home." Adam smiled apologetically. "I still have a few things to take care of here." Maybe I can ask them for some ingredients. They should have peanut butter. Eve immediately nodded. If it's made by Adam, I'll eat anything. When Adam said he needed to step outside for a moment, Eve's eyes immediately filled with tears again. Where are you going? Adam panicked. Why are you crying again? I'm just going to ask them for some food. Eve immediately shook his head. Then I won't eat. It was obvious that what had left Eve deeply traumatized. Unable to leave him alone, Adam decided to take Eve with him. Only then did Eve stop crying. Adam couldn't help but notice. Eve had finally learned how to express his emotions, and the one who had taught him was Isaiah. 7 years ago, Isaiah had once been Adam's mentor. Lost in thought, Adam suddenly heard Eve call his name. What are you thinking about? I'm right here. Don't think about other things. After erasing his own memories, Eve had also lost his ability to manipulate memories. Perhaps that was a blessing in disguise. When Eve quietly asked for another kiss, Adam smiled and agreed. Afterward, Adam laughed softly. Your tears made your lips taste salty. Eve blinked in confusion. Adam gently recalled something Eve had said before. You once called yourself a failed creation. That isn't true. You're not a failure. And that's exactly why I never want to see you get hurt. Even these salty tears taste sweet to me. To me, Eve is a truly perfect person. That night, Eve finally told Adam the real reason he had refused to let Adam guide him. Just as Adam had suspected, it was because he was worried about Adam. As they lay together before going to sleep, Eve said, I apologized to Chess. He accepted my apology. We also promised that I wouldn't lose my temper anymore. Adam smiled warmly. You did a great job. Eve looked as though he wanted to say something else. Before he could, Adam leaned forward and gently kissed him. Afterward, Adam quietly asked, When we do the guidance together, does it make you uncomfortable? Eve shook his head. No. Then why were you avoiding it? Eve hesitated before answering. Because whenever we guide together, your heartbeat becomes strange. It's not just weaker. Sometimes it's too fast, and sometimes too slow. Adam fell silent. Could that be the side effect of the enhancer? The drugs used to increase a guide's pheromone output all had different side effects. But one side effect was well known. Loss of vision. The thought suddenly triggered a memory. I lost my eyesight once. Then Adam frowned. Wait, I really did lose my sight before. If that's true, then these eyes I have now. Eve's voice pulled him back to reality. Adam? What's wrong? Adam forced himself to smile. Right now, calming Eve's anxiety mattered far more, so he gently asked, Do you like guiding with me? Eve thought seriously before answering honestly. I do. I like it very much. Hearing that made Adam smile. I like it too. As he slowly leaned closer, Eve instinctively pushed him away. I'm afraid I'll hurt you again. But Adam shook his head. I want to try. Seeing Adam take the initiative, Eve finally stopped holding himself back. Before long, the sounds coming from inside the room became impossible to ignore. Outside, one of the guards frowned. Did you hear something? His partner listened for a moment before shrugging. You must have imagined it. Inside the room, Adam smiled as he brushed a hand through Eve's soft hair. He's adorable like this too. Adam reached toward the drawer beside the bed, searching for a sweet candy. Eve peeked over curiously. What are you looking for? After Adam explained, Eve's eyes lit up. Then, let me help you. When Adam nodded in agreement, Eve beamed with childlike delight, before happily leaning forward to give him another kiss. Seeing Isaiah standing so close to Adam, Eve's jealousy exploded instantly. The next morning, the alarm clock rang, waking Adam from his sleep. Beside him, Eve didn't move an inch. "The alarm's ringing," Adam said with a smile. "Time to get up." Instead of answering, Eve lazily raised a finger and pointed toward the alarm clock. Adam followed his gaze. The moment Eve activated his ability, the alarm began smoking and abruptly stopped ringing. Adam stared at it speechlessly. Eve looked at him with a mischievous grin. "Let's sleep a little longer." Adam could only sigh with a helpless smile. I'll have to teach him later that solving problems this way isn't exactly ideal. After getting ready, the two headed to the cafeteria for breakfast. Everyone nearby watched them with puzzled expressions. "They're so obviously a couple." Adam carefully spread jam over a slice of toast before handing it to Eve. Eve happily accepted it, eating with obvious delight. "I want to go home soon," he said. Adam gently comforted him. "Just be patient a little longer." At that moment, they noticed Isaiah approaching. Since he and Adam were already well acquainted, Isaiah skipped the small talk and immediately asked Adam to step aside for a private conversation. Meanwhile, Eve stayed behind chatting with Gabriel. Adam lit a cigarette. Isaiah casually stepped closer, asking if he could have one as well. As he casually rested a hand on Adam's shoulder, Adam immediately brushed it away. Isaiah chuckled. "Eve's emotions are getting richer and richer. I've known him for so long. This is the first time I've ever seen him this angry." Adam nodded. "Ryan mentioned that before. But I've never actually seen Eve get angry." Then Adam asked, "Did I ever experience side effects from the guidance enhancers? Something like temporary blindness?" Isaiah paused for a long moment. "I can confirm that for you. But are you sure you're ready to bear the truth? Sometimes not knowing is kinder." He looked Adam straight in the eyes. "A part of your memories was manipulated. It was done by your precious angel. For your sake, he rebelled for the very first time. That angel who had always lived like a puppet made his very first choice. So think carefully. Do you really want to know?" Isaiah smiled faintly. "Do you know what the first emotion Eve ever learned wasn't? It wasn't fear." As he spoke, Isaiah casually slipped an arm around Adam's neck. At that exact moment, Eve noticed them from across the room. Isaiah leaned in even closer. The very first emotion he learned was overwhelming jealousy. Before he could finish his sentence, a hand suddenly grabbed him and yanked him backward with tremendous force. Gabriel rushed over to steady Isaiah. "Are you okay?" Isaiah laughed. "I'm fine. More than fine." Across the room, Eve had already wrapped both arms tightly around Adam. The possessiveness in his eyes couldn't have been more obvious. It seemed Eve really loved kissing Adam. The moment Adam said, "If you don't listen to me, I'll never kiss you again," Eve looked like he was about to burst into tears. He held Adam tightly in his arms. Then Adam noticed something unusual. Eve's eyes had changed. Seeing the situation turn dangerous, Isaiah immediately looked at Gabriel. "Can you stop him?" Gabriel hesitated before answering, "I can try, but I can probably only hold him for about 47 seconds. Isaiah's composure instantly disappeared. "Looks like I pushed that joke a little too far." Eve slowly raised his hand, preparing to activate his power. Gabriel immediately stepped in front of Isaiah to shield him. Just then, "Eve." Adam's voice stopped everything. He gently took Eve's hand, turned him around, and made him look into his eyes. "Didn't you promise you'd listen to me? If you don't behave, I'll never kiss you again." Those words hit Eve like a bolt from the blue. His eyes immediately filled with tears. "I'm sorry. I'll be good." Isaiah let out a long breath. Saved. Adam quickly softened his expression. He gently comforted Eve, and right there, in front of Isaiah and Gabriel, leaned in to kiss him. Before leaving, Isaiah said to Adam, "Once you've made your decision, contact me. I'll respect whatever you choose." Afterward, Adam and Eve returned to their room. Seeing Eve acting unusually quiet, Adam asked, "Do you need guidance?" Eve shook his head. "No, I just want to play games with you." Adam blinked in surprise. "Really? I always thought you only played games with me because of the guidance." Eve tilted his head as he listened to Adam's heartbeat. "It's beating so fast. Is your heart okay?" Adam smiled. "I'm fine. I'm just really happy. Because you want to play games with me." Eve stared blankly at Adam for a moment. "He's so cute." Before he even realized it, his face began to grow warm. Caught off guard by Adam's heartfelt praise, Eve blushed so deeply that he didn't know what to say. In his recorded memoir, Adam confessed that he still blamed himself. "It was my own selfishness that ruined Eve." At Adam's request, Isaiah agreed to help him recover his lost memories. Lilith was a supercomputer. Using the chips implanted in every guide and sentinel, it recorded every memory they experienced. It had originally been created so that, if humanity were ever wiped out, future generations would still inherit the records of human civilization. Normally, only the person themselves could access their own memories. Only after a person's death would those records become available to others. With Lilith's assistance, Adam's memories rewound back to the final gate. That was where everything had first gone wrong. Standing there once again, Adam watched Eve in astonishment. "You defeated the angel already?" Eve smiled brightly and greeted him. Then he leaned forward and gave Adam a quick kiss. At the same time, Adam tasted blood in his mouth. Eve looked delighted. "I wanted to come back to you as quickly as possible, so I pushed my powers too hard. That's why I need guidance." Hearing those words, Adam's face instantly turned bright red. Eve then gently took Adam's hand and offered him his own wrists, silently inviting Adam to bind him again. But Adam didn't do it. Instead, he looked Eve in the eyes. "I have something I want to tell you. I'm so glad you came back safely. Welcome home, Sentinel Michael. And thank you for protecting everyone." Hearing such sincere praise, Eve grew visibly embarrassed. He shyly lowered his gaze. A few days later, Adam received new orders at the training facility. The commander informed him, "Sentinel Michael has personally requested that you become his first guidance partner." Adam frowned. "But I'm only a B-class guide. The difference in our ranks is too great." "We know," the commander replied. Adam looked even more confused. Then the commander continued, "I've heard Michael marked you. This should be the second time you've ever been marked. The first sentinel who tried to mark you died inside a gate. After that, no sentinel ever marked you again. And now Michael has. That's why the center is pressuring our division. Adam William, you've become an extremely valuable research subject." Adam fell silent. There was nothing left to argue. He accompanied Ryan toward Eve's room. Along the way, Ryan explained, "The researchers only measure data. They don't actually observe how you interact." Adam laughed at himself. "So, at least we won't feel like animals in a zoo." Ryan smiled apologetically. "I'm sorry this happened so suddenly. There are so few studies on sentinel marking. We couldn't avoid this situation." "It's okay," Adam replied. Ryan continued, "Michael used to be incredibly calm. He never showed much curiosity. But recently, he keeps asking questions about you." Adam blinked in surprise. Lost in thought, he eventually found himself standing outside Eve's room. Ryan gave him one final warning. "Take care, and whatever you do, don't provoke him." After Ryan left, Adam slowly opened the door. Inside, Eve immediately walked over with a bright smile. "I've been waiting for you." Adam froze. Before he could react, Eve had already taken his hand, gently led him inside, closed the door behind them, wrapped Adam in a warm embrace, and smiled. "You came so quickly." I'm happy. You look beautiful today. After being given the name Eve by Adam, the powerful sentinel becomes deeply attached to it. When the scientist Isaiah casually calls him Eve, Eve immediately objects, insisting that only Adam is allowed to call him by that name because it was a gift from Adam. Adam initially hesitates, explaining that Eve was originally the name of his beloved pet cat. Hurt, Eve quietly confesses that he wants something that belongs only to the two of them, because as a failed creation, he has never truly had anything of his own. Understanding Eve's loneliness, Adam proposes a compromise. Instead of arguing over the name, they decide to create special promises that only they share. Eve shyly whispers his wish. He wants Adam to kiss only him. Adam agrees, and from that day on, kissing becomes their private expression of love. Eventually, they no longer need to ask. Whenever their eyes meet, they naturally find themselves sharing a gentle kiss, growing closer like lovers. Their peaceful days are suddenly interrupted when an emergency alarm sounds. A massive gate appears without any warning signs, shocking everyone at the research center. Isaiah angrily reveals that the government had ignored requests to upgrade the detection system and even cut funding because they falsely believed the gate crisis was over. Now, humanity faces what may be the largest gate in history. The center immediately mobilizes its strongest sentinels and guides for the operation. Seeing that everyone around him outranks him, Adam doubts whether he can contribute. Eve gently takes his hand and promises, "Don't be afraid, I'll protect you." Determined to stand beside him no matter the cost, Adam secretly brings along a guidance enhancer, fully prepared to endure its dangerous side effects if it means helping Eve survive. As the enormous gate opens before them, the elite teams leap into the unknown, Adam and Eve descending together into the greatest battle humanity has ever faced.